That's hot, that's hot, that's hot, that's hot, that's hot, that's hot, that's hot,
Please join me in welcoming Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Thank you, thank you. It's so refreshing to see so many men in the audience. You know, in the United States, when I lecture in the United States, of course, I'm talking to 80% women, 20% men, and it's refreshing in Australia that so many men actually have come and listened to me talk. And it's unique because if you look at a functional brain scan of a man when he's resolving a problem, functional brain scans study mind. If you see a man's brain while he's resolving a problem, it's all lateralized to one side, and it's just single-minded, looking at every problem the same exact way. And that's why men, when they go Christmas shopping, you know what I'm talking about. They go out with their list, they buy the one gift, they come home, they cross it off, they wrap the present, then they go back out again. They hunt the second time, they come back with the gift. But women, if you look at a functional brain scan of a woman resolving a problem, it's like a lightning storm in the brain. Both hemispheres are going off, and there's all this type of activity moving back and forth between both sides of the brain. And when they're resolving an issue or when they're understanding things, they do it in a very non-linear way. And if you're ever around a powerful woman who's shopping, of course, I'll take 2 of those and 3 of those, and how about this for our trip to Hawaii, and we do this over here. And so they can gather information in this unique way. And in my present state of ignorance, I would have to say that the female brain seems to be a more superior brain. But, there's this balance that takes place between men and women. Men have this ability to be single-minded, and they can get very intentional about what they want. And intention is basically getting clear on what you want. And because the way men's brains work, they get very single-minded, they get very clear, and then they move. And so they have intention down, but there's this balance that takes place between intention and surrender. And we can't have one without the other. And the way the woman's mind works is that they have this ability to surrender. And the surrender quality is knowing an outcome, not knowing how it's going to happen, but in fact trusting. And because women have this natural ability, of course, they can surrender to a greater mind, they can surrender to an outcome without logically processing the steps to get there. Now, one's not better than the other, but usually we have to teach men how to surrender without going through a logical process, and we have to help women to get single-minded and get clear on what they want. And so that balance kind of takes place, and it really shows up on scans to see that there's an exchange, and it's good to see that men actually are embracing the information. And when I'll talk this afternoon, I'll use a lot of science, and of course that's for the men, so that they can accept a little bit more. So how many people did see the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? And most people, no matter where I travel around the world and shake hands and talk to people, the most common thing that people say to me when they introduce themselves to me is they all say the same thing. They all say, that movie is something that I secretly already knew, but I didn't know how to put it into words. How many people had that experience? And the movies, it transcends culture, and it transcends race, and it transcends gender, and social status, and education. It basically says that if you're alive and your heart's beating, that you have the opportunity to change at any moment. And that gives people permission then to experience their own potential, to experience their own greatness. And we all secretly believe that we can do a better job in life. We all secretly believe in our own personal potential. And that belief really transcends culture and religion, and it transcends gender. It transcends all those things because there is a divine aspect in every human being that gives us the right to begin to design our lives exactly the way we want. So if we believe in the quantum field of potentials that says that we can design a future based on the way we think and act, why do we keep creating the same circumstances in our life? How can we have the same relationships and the same jobs and the same conditions? Why is it that we keep repeating the same actions and expecting a different result? So to change then, to truly change, is to begin to think and act differently in the same circumstances in your life. To change is to think and act greater than your environment, to think greater than the conditions in your world. You see, the problem is that the brain, according to neuroscience, is a reflection of the environment. It's organized to reflect our own personal environment, our own personal life. And so the people and the circumstances and the places and the conditions and all of the events and experiences that we've ever had and learned is organized in the neurological structure of our brain. And because we can recognize everything in our world as familiar, the problem is that every time we begin to perceive reality, we're causing our brain to work in predictable ways. In other words, the environment is causing us to think. And if we can recognize familiar people and circumstances in our life, and those particular elements are causing the brain to turn on and firing different circuits, then it's the environment causing us to think. We'll never think greater than the environment. And if we keep thinking equal to the environment, what do we keep creating more of? The same exact thing. So to change then is to begin to think and act differently in the same circumstances. And I think that the greatest habit we have to break is the habit of being ourselves. That neuroscience and psychology says that by the time we're 35, the personality or the identity is a complete set of finite circuits, or we're pretty much finite. And the good news is that you're going to turn out just like your parents, have a great life. And so what is it when we say the personality is a complete set of circuits, or the personality is finite by the time we're in our mid-30s? It basically means that we have pretty much experienced most of what reality has to offer through our senses. And in fact, because of that, we tend to create hardwired programs, automatic programs that we have pretty much wired in our brains so that we can deal with any situation. And we use these automatic programs so that we can avoid the inconvenience of having to learn something new. Because what really happens in our late 30s is we stop learning and we start feeling. That feelings become the means of thinking, and we evaluate every circumstance based on how it's going to feel. And if we don't like the way the circumstance is going to feel, we decide not to embrace it. And so how much room do we leave for the unknown, for the uncommon? And if the brain is actually changed by every experience we've had, how many new experiences have we had? So I think the movie was pretty refreshing because it combined quantum physics and neurobiology and neuroscience and neurophysiology and neuroendocrinology and receptor site physiology and genetics and, all those sciences and biology. And it really was pointing the finger at you. See, the movie was about you and me. And when we begin to see that science says that there's more to us than meets the eye, it gives people the interest and the understanding that they actually want to do something with themselves and with their lives and begin to look at their life as a scientific experiment. And if you don't like the conditions or the circumstances in your life, then the solution may be to change the way you think and act. And of course, that means then that we have to begin to learn information and to learn knowledge, and that's what begins to force the brain to work in new ways. That knowledge is the integrating force that allows us to make new connections and new circuits in our brain. You see, to think inside the box, when someone says to think inside the box, what that means is that people tend to reinforce the circuits in their brain by continuously thinking and acting the same way. And the law in neuroscience says nerve cells that fire together wire together. So if you keep firing the same thoughts and performing the same actions over and over again, those neural circuits become finite and they become complete. So to think outside the box is to force the brain to begin to fire in new sequences, in new patterns, in new combinations. And that takes an act of will. But knowledge tends to be a great ingredient that helps the brain to reshuffle and reorganize the way we process information. And the movie was a good beginning for a lot of people because it got them thinking in new ways. Would you agree? And would you agree also that when you saw that person, Marlee Matlin, the main character, you thought, oh my gosh, she's handicapped, right? And your first